So this presentation is geared toward current 9th and 10th graders. It is being recorded, so just in case you have to log off early, or maybe you know someone who wasn't able to make it, we will be posting it to our YouTube page at some point. One other technical note is we will be having a question and answer session at the end of this presentation. We have a couple wonderful counselors on the chat tonight as well to let us know if there are any clarifying questions we need to go for the relevant topic we're talking about along the way. But if you just have a general question, if you could please help us out by saving those to the end. I know if I'm in a webinar and I see the Q&A is very active, it gets distracting for me, and I'm sure true for a lot of you as well. So thanks for being with us tonight. My name is Kelly Falcone. I'm one of the counselors at Cal High. I'll let my co-presenter introduce himself.
I'm John Sawyer. I am also one of the counselors here at Cal High.
All righty. So a little bit about what we're talking about tonight. If I'm looking off to the side, it's because that's where my presentation is for me. So I am paying attention to you all, but that's where we're at. So thinking about what classes your students will be taking next year, the important question of how to know if you are on track to graduate, obviously also talking about what you're going to do if you're not on track for graduation, thinking a little bit about, we know many people are thinking about college and beyond, what high school options are out there, and we'll be talking about what you need to do in high school to meet those requirements and to be a competitive applicant. And then we are counselors who are all about student wellness, so thinking about big picture, balance, how to make sure a schedule's overwhelming, and then the nuts and bolts of the logistics of the course selection process here at Cal High. So a little overview of what we're doing. Another overview that's important for you to know is who is your child's counselor. At our school, we divide up all of our 3,000 students by the letters of their last name. So you could see here, some people, it's the first couple letters, so you might need to look beyond just the first letter of the last name. So for example, I split the R's with Miss Bellini, so our students starting with last name R have to look a couple letters in to see, do they have me or do they have Miss Bellini? So here's our breakdown with all of our faces to put a face to the name. I know many of you we correspond with via email, but that way you know who's behind the message. We also have some additional services that are available for all students. So your child's school counselor helps with college and career, academics, social emotional issues. Really, we consider ourselves the junk drawer of the school for many students, where they might come to us if they don't know who else to go to. So that's us, but there are some additional services as well. Miss Mullins is another counselor. She's her title is a support counselor versus just we are a general counselor. She is purely at our school to help with social emotional needs. So she doesn't have a specific caseload of students, but more sees students on referral, whether that's from the counselors, the teachers, or the student self-referring. So really, she's there for a little extra for whoever needs that. We also have Miss Goldenberg in the Wellness Center, or the Zen Den, as we call it, that does many different things, programming for students and different groups and clubs, but also is there as a reset space for students that are needing to access their coping skills during class time. That's a resource available to all of our students at Cal to go when they need, and maybe they're needing to talk to a trusted adult, or maybe they're just really feeling overwhelmed and needing 10 to 15 minutes to get recentered and back ready to learn. We also have the wonderful Miss Kathy Nichols, who's in the College and Career Center. She wears so many different hats, but the ones we'll talk about tonight, she helps students do college and career planning, some self-assessments. She plans all of our college rep visits. We've had over 150 college representatives visit campus this year, either virtually or in person. She's involved in testing coordination and happens to be very involved in the band too, and student internships, volunteer opportunities, really a whole bunch of different things. And her office is located in the counseling office as well. So another wonderful resource for students. And I always like to say during these presentations when we're talking about who are available to your kids at Cal, how to access us. So obviously through email, if you ever have a concern about your student, we're available that way and we can work with you. Really, I will say as a department, our philosophy is we like to put students first and make sure they're involved and at the forefront of their education to the extent that is possible and makes sense. So we really like to try to, we get a referral from the parent, we try and troubleshoot with your guidance with our students. So we really value our face-to-face interactions with them. Students are also available to come see us during our drop-in hours, which is break and lunch or before and after school, really anytime they're not in instructional minutes in class. We are there ready to field their questions and help them in whatever way we can to make our school a little better for them. So it's a little bit about us. Um, and then let me see. Talking about next year. So in the past couple weeks, all of the counselors were deployed to classrooms to pass out our course selection sheets. They're different colors for different grade levels. So, gosh, I'm drawing a blank on which ones sophomores and juniors are, but they would have gotten it in their English class. We would have passed it out to them and explained, maybe that's how you heard about this night. But that's kind of the gold mine for information about this process in terms of what classes are available to them, what are the important dates to know. So if you can't find that sheet, it is also available on our course selection website. This time of year, the course selection page is linked right on the homepage if you go to the Cal High Counseling website, so you can't miss it. And that's where a lot of these links and resources we're talking about, they all live there. So I would highly suggest you go check that out if you haven't already. Like I said, the course selection sheets do vary by grade level because different classes are available to different grades of students. And on those sheets, you can also see which A through G, college prep, which requirement they're fulfilling. So that's useful in that way. There's also the link to the course catalog. Obviously, we couldn't have descriptions of all of the very many classes that we offer on these sheets. So we do refer students to the course catalog to be able to read more in depth about the class, look at what the prerequisites are, and just really see if the class would be a good fit for their needs and if it's matching what they're hoping it would be. On our website is also links to the AP and honors resources. We'll talk more about that a bit later, but just we really want to think about balance for the students, and that is where you can help figure out what's reasonable. It has recommendations for success in previous classes. There's also information about estimated hours these different classes might take in terms of homework and studying. The last thing on our website that I'll point out is it's a bit of a separate page, but if you look for the high school graduation requirements, there's the same comparison we're going to go over in just these next slides. So this is also available on the website. And like I said, we will post these slides in the video to our page as well. So comparing high school graduation with A through G requirements. And when I say A through G requirements, I'm referring to our California public school eligibility requirements. So for our University of California, UC, and California State University, CSU systems, these 15 classes are required to be able to really even apply and be an applicant. So we're going to go over in some ways they align with our graduation requirements, and then obviously we'll highlight some key differences. Looking first at social studies, this is really, I think, the one area where the high school graduation requirement is more than what the colleges require. So for high school graduation, your freshmen take world geo, sophomores take world history, juniors take US history, and seniors do government and economics. The CSU and UC, really, they're only using world history and US history. What's great about this for students in our district is that the government and econ is another college prep elective, and it can count as that for many students. So that's kind of already built into our course plan because of the way this is set up. English, very standard, 4 years of English. It's true for high school grad and college requirements, and generally speaking, that's true across the country. So safe there. Math. For high school graduation, purely, students need to complete Algebra 1, and that could be Algebra 1, it could be A1E2, right? Different classes can fulfill that, and any other year of math. So, right, that's kind of where there's more flexibility. For colleges, CSU and UC, they're needing Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2. They're wanting to see all three of those classes, and really, they would love to see a fourth year. They understand if that might not be possible for a variety of reasons, but to be the most competitive college applicant, they'll want to see a fourth year of math. What that could look like will vary by students. And generally speaking, too, if you have a student who might be advanced in math, they're really wanting to see students taking some sort of math or quantitative reasoning class every year of high school. Science. This again, we're very well aligned with the colleges. 1 year of physical science. When we say that, we're talking about really chemistry or physics, and 1 year of life science. So something like biology, which generally speaking, our students get done in the first few years of high school, maybe freshman and sophomore, maybe sophomore and junior. A third year is recommended for the UC system, which tends to have a little more strict requirements, competitive applicants. That third year is recommended. So they would love to see another lab science there. Could be junior year, could be senior year, right? Some flexibility around that. These next areas are where there's the most difference between high school grad and college eligibility. So we're talking about world language, visual performing art, and then vocational or applied art, which is like a career tech class, right? Really hands-on learning. So for high school graduation, you need any two out of the three of those, 1 year of any two out of the three of those. So I could do a year of Spanish and a year of culinary arts and meet my requirement. If you're wanting to go to college, on the other hand, you need 2 years of the same language, right? They specify that it's the same. Doing Spanish 1 and Mandarin 1 would not meet that requirement. So they want to see 2 years, but a third year is recommended. And one really common question that we get is about when we're talking about years, what that means. They're really referring to levels. So if your student did French 1A and French 1B in middle school, they take French 2 in high school, they've met the second level and have met the requirement. So they would love to see a third year, but you would have met the requirement with the French 2. Visual and performing art, 1 year, right? All of our classes are a year long, so that works out. So 1 year of fine art. Again, you can see which classes count for that on the course selection sheets. They'll be noted with the little F. And I always think it's a good idea to double check that, because some students are like, oh, I'm taking culinary arts that has art in the title, but that doesn't count as a fine art, that's an applied art. So just being sure, right? Great class to take. I would love to have taken that class in high school, but just knowing what your classes are counting for in terms of your goals. And the vocational applied art, again, it's not required for college. The vast majority of our classes at Cal High are college prep, so it could count for the college prep elective as well, if you're wanting things beyond just the Gov and Econ. Health, 1 semester is required. Students typically do that as a freshman, but if your student came in late to Cal High or maybe they didn't pass, definitely talk to the counselor about that. Not required for college. PE, 2 years of credit are required, or 20 credits. Each year is 10 credits, 5 credits per semester. So 2 years to graduate high school, not required for college, but I always do like to remind students that graduating from high school is required to apply to college. So in that way, it kind of is. The electives, we'll go more in depth with this later about what are electives and how do they work. 60 credits are required for high school graduation to get up to 220 credits. That's how many credits students in our district need to graduate. So that's, with all the other credits they have, they need 60 more to get to that 220 number. 1 year of a college prep elective is required for university. Like I said, Gov, Econ, World Geo. If any students do additional art or additional math, additional science, those could all count as college prep electives as well. So for high school graduation, 220 credits, earning a grade of D- or higher. For college eligibility, they're looking for those 15 classes that I just laid out with a C- or better. So that's the other key difference there, is Ds do earn credit toward a diploma, but you need Cs for credit towards college eligibility. And a C- does count. I know a lot of time we say Cs are better, and I'll always have a student, but I got a C-. Do I have to make that up? No, you're good. Just the letter C. It has to start with the letter C. All right. I didn't know if there were any questions in the Q&A so far, or if I can just turn it over to Mr. Sawyer or John. I guess we're all friends here.
All right.
Just
All right.
one question in the Q&A, and it's just, does ceramics count as a visual performing art? And so I just wanted to confirm that, yes, that does count as a visual art.
Yes, and that's where I would love to say that course selection sheet is going to be your best friend, because it has everything right there with what classes count for what credit. Also in the course catalog, it does outline all of those things as well.
All right, so let's take a look at your high school transcript or your student's high school transcript. There's a lot of information on there. So let's start with the left-hand column there, the GPA summary. You have listed the cumulative GPA, both weighted and unweighted. So what this means is all classes that are taken in high school that are on the transcript. The unweighted means they're not getting that extra bump in GPA for the AP and honors classes that they've taken. The weighted means that they are. The Cal Grant GPA, the state uses that calculation for financial aid purposes. And then the weighted 10 through 12 A through G GPA, the bottom one there, is only the college prep classes in those years specified, so grades 10 through 12. Moving across the way here to the credit summary box on the right side, I like to tell students this is going to be your best friend if you can just take a second and learn how to read it. There's 4 columns there. You see attempted, earned, required, and remaining. So pay attention to that remaining column on the far right, because that is what is left. And you can see what subject areas are remaining. In this case, you can see that this student has 25 remaining credits in English, which makes sense as a second semester sophomore because you have to take English all 4 years of high school. And just going on down there, you see your health, your algebra, your general math, all the way down there to, I believe, world language is the last one listed there at the bottom, and then your totals. So again, as Miss Niguero, excuse me, Miss Falcone, mentioned, the number that we're getting to for high school graduation is 220, and you can find that in the earned column. At this point, for a second semester sophomore, we would expect them to be somewhere around 90 credits earned so far, and it looks like this student is right on track with that. And just to clarify what a credit is, so each 1 semester course that a student takes in our district is worth 5 credits. As long as a student earns that D minus or higher, they're going to get those credits. As mentioned, for high school graduation, we need D's or higher. They will earn the credit for that class. But again, for college admittance, we're looking for C minus or higher. So to stay on the worry-free track, as long as you're earning 30 credits a semester, you are going to graduate, and you will be well on your way to the next phase of life here. So. And let's talk a little bit more. Let's talk about some remediation options. So we do offer a summer school for remediation purposes in the district. Students who earn Fs in required courses will need to remediate in order to meet the graduation requirements. So if they don't pass the English or the science or the math or the history, we're going to need to make that up at some point so they can still graduate. Students who earn Ds may need to remediate that subject for college admission. So talk to your counselor about that. We want you guys to be as attractive of candidates as possible. So if you need to remediate, we want to make sure that you have the opportunity to do so. We usually make our referrals to summer school during our one-on-one meetings and check-ins with our students, and those we'll mention again later. They're going to be happening in March and April. So, okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty about choosing your actual classes for next year. So we're going to be going through all of the various subject requirements. So since you need it every year, let's start with English. There are different offerings for both 10th and 11th graders, and just check your course selection sheet. There's for 10th graders, I believe we have English 10 and then Global Studies. For English, for 11th graders, we're going to have English 11 and English 11 Justice and Community. And then moving down for the history requirement, for 10th, we're going to have the Global Studies History, which is paired with the Global Studies English, and then also a World History and AP World History, and I believe AP Euro will be the options for the 10th graders next year. And then just remember, if a student's interested in global studies, they have to choose that for both English and history. And then for 11th graders, you need to take either US history or AP US history, or as we shorten it to A push.
Great. All right. So talking about math. So generally speaking, we're talking about incoming 10th and 11th graders. So the vast majority of your students will still be taking a math class. What that is depends on what math they're in now. So the course sequence is listed in the course catalog. Your student's current math teacher is also a really great resource, because you'll notice in the course catalog, there are going to be places where there's like a little fork in the road and they get to decide which way to go. And talking to their teacher about it, talking to us in the one-on-one meeting about it, we're obviously happy to help. So thinking about that, like I said, for college eligibility speaking, the goal is through Algebra 2 for high school graduation, just needing 2 years of math, including a year of Algebra 1. So I'll kind of go over the most common things we're seeing is for freshmen currently in A1, E1, they'll be taking A1, E2. For students taking Algebra 1, they'll be taking geometry. And for students in geometry, they would move on to Algebra 2. Algebra 2, that's kind of where the forks in the road start, of maybe you do pre-calc or pre-calc honors or statistics or intro to data science, right? Lots of different options open up the older students get, and that's definitely true for math. Like we said earlier, or I said earlier, to be a competitive college applicant, if that's the goal, really being in math every year is recommended. Obviously, that might not be the path for everyone, right? All students have different strengths, but that's kind of the cookie cutter recommendation. So a more nuanced conversation would be needed if that's not the path we're thinking of, what else we would recommend instead. For science, like we said, 20 credits are required. One life science, which is also, I think it's on the sheet as biological sciences. So anything listed under biological science would meet that life science requirement, or physical science. For third year, right, that optional third year that we talked about, it's a wild card. You get to pick what you're wanting. There's some classes that don't neatly fit in either category, like AP Computer Science Principles or AP Environmental Science, right, that aren't quite in either category necessarily. The trifecta, right, the golden trifecta for college admissions can be bio, chem, and physics. So it's a great idea if you're kind of, not super set on doing any certain thing after taking bio and chem. Physics would be like the default recommendation. There are some out-of-state colleges that really do want all three of those specifically.
And moving on, next subject we're going to hit is PE. And just remember, 20 credits are required to graduate. So ninth graders, this year you are enrolled in PE 9, and that should take care of half of that. The additional 10 credits have to be completed sometime before you graduate. You don't have to do it in any one particular year, and there's a few different ways that you can do it. You can take a Cal High PE class, and those are listed on that course selection sheet under physical education. After ninth grade, you can do athletic PE, which is a participation in a Cal High sport for the entire season. And there's a little bit of paperwork that goes along with that at the end of the season. We do offer PE credit for marching band, and you need to do 2 seasons of that. So that would be 2 fall seasons right at the beginning of the year. And we do have independent study PE that some of our students take advantage of, and there's several requirements that go along with that. And the application window, I believe, is in March, and we have linked the application information in there. So there's very specific criteria that the independent sport has to meet in order for us to count it as PE. So please check that link for all those details.
Awesome, thank you. And I just saw a follow-up question for PE credit in 10th grade. Does any Cal High sport count? There's a few things about e-ball, needing to compete in e-balls. If you have any questions about specific sports, you can ask the athletic director or counselor. We don't want to, but generally speaking, yes, there's very, very few exceptions to that. Okay, so this is kind of the choose your own adventure portion that I was talking about earlier. So world language, for A to G requirements, you do need 2 years of the same language, with 3 being recommended. We really don't advise, we actually strongly advise against taking a break between world language. I know sometimes students they see an elective class they're really excited to take and really want to request it, but it would mean, say, doing French 1 this year, not taking anything, and then going back to French 2 later on. And we just strongly discourage that, because taking a break from something that's as immersive and practice heavy as language just really disrupts the learning, and a lot of forgetting happens in that year. So really, students are best advised to take those back to back in sequence. We also have a new class at Cal High next year. We're going to be offering Korean. So if anyone is wanting to start a new language, we have that available. We're very excited about it. So that's a new offering. Um, for fine art, like I said, for A to G, you need 1 year of a visual or performing art. On the course selection sheet, you'll see them broken down: visual art, performing art. Anyone with a little F there would count to meet that fine art requirement. So lots and lots of options at school for that. That truly always my favorite classrooms to visit, because there's so much going on and it's student work and just really incredible. So lots of stuff there to choose from. The vocational or applied art, also thought of as like career technical education classes, not required for A through G, but really they're hands-on learning. Our students very much enjoy them. I would say, gosh, I would love to run a report about how many of our students take all three of these domains, because I feel like at least 80%, I would say, probably do. And a lot of times they do count for that G college prep elective as well.
And speaking of electives, so this is one of the most common questions we get in the counseling office is, how do the electives work? Because I feel like I'm behind. Please don't worry, they're a little tricky to understand. Think of electives more strictly as credits rather than actual classes. So anything that is over the minimum amount to graduate, we are going to be adding to your elective total for high school graduation. So for example, let's say your student is really a math student. They are passionate about math. They plan on going into a STEM heavy field, and they want to get after as many math classes as we have on campus while they're still in high school. So as we mentioned earlier, the requirements to graduate high school are Algebra 1 and 1 other year of math. So anything beyond that, we are going to be applying towards their elective credit to graduate high school. And it's like that across all subject areas. If a student is passionate about their certain language and they want to go through from French 1 all the way through AP French, anything beyond French 1, we're actually going to be adding that to their elective total for high school graduation purposes. So hopefully that makes sense. You can always email us if you have questions. We know this is the way it's set up is a bit confusing, but as long as you're passing classes in years 9 through 11, then really those elective credits are going to take care of themselves. They're already factored into the equation, and like I said, as long as you're passing, you're going to be just fine.
I would like to put in my PSA right now, Mr. Sawyer, because
Yes.
we beg you, please do not look at the academic plan in your Infinite Campus portal, because
Yes.
it is, for some reason, it's not accurate. We wish we could just turn it off. We evaluate based on transcripts. That's what we advise you to look at as well if you're wondering where you stand on credits. But please just ignore that academic plan progress report. It always shows up with a bunch of red and it's misleading, and just, yeah, that's my PSA for the night.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Falcone. We don't want to add stress to your life. We want to take some of it away. So yeah, we always highly recommend that you look at the transcript, not the academic plan, because the transcript is the document that we actually send out to the colleges on your students' behalf. That's what we go off of. That's what they go off of. So that's what you should go off of. And so some other things that should be considered here as we talk about selecting classes here. Make sure you have alternates for your requests, or else we as counselors get to pick them for you. And we don't know you as well as you know you, and we probably wouldn't pick what you would pick. We're going to pick what's easiest for us, not necessarily what's easiest for you. So please give us some alternatives to those electives, especially as you get into the later years of high school, and make sure that there's something that you're interested in taking. Don't do it just to fill. Please please have it be something that you would be happy to end up in, because there is a chance of that. So for sciences, you are allowed to take one core science class. That would be like the bio, chem, physics, for example, concurrently with a science elective. That would be things like the biomedical pathway or honors anatomy and physiology. There are some classes that require auditions or applications or interviews. Please make sure that if you are going to choose one of those classes, like mock trial or any of the advanced theater levels or a couple of the choir or band groups, please make sure they are in your primary choices, not in your alternates, because if they are in your alternates, you won't receive notification of when the application, audition, or interviews are, and we want to make sure that that information gets to you. So we have other specialty programs here on campus that the value really goes beyond the college prep. We have several programs that are very practical and can help you with just doing life as a new adult. Classes that will teach you how to budget, classes that will teach you how to look for an apartment. Some of those basic adulting skills that I think are just, and not just me, but the whole staff thinks are very, very valuable for students as they prepare to launch and strike out on their own for the first time in life.
Yeah, and to get more involved in the community. Like I'm thinking of classes like iQuest, where students can have an internship, or academic leadership, where they get to mentor and tutor other students. We also have a new peer counseling class, right? Similar to tutor relationship, only they're actually learning counseling skills. I'm so excited to get to witness that. I think it's going to be really awesome.
We also have the Careers in Teaching program, where students get to intern at one of the local elementary schools and really see if education is for them. And it's so great to see the students who are passionate about that. All right, let's talk about B period and the 7th class option. This is specifically for the 10th graders. So you can request to enroll in that 7th class, but only if that class is part of the school's co-curricular programs. So there are a few more choices available to you than there were as an incoming 9th grader. So if you have an academic studies class, that could put you in candidacy for a B period. The journalism program, leadership, music, dance, theater, arts, all those performing categories, the biomedical pathway, engineering, or yearbook. If it is one of those and falls into that category, you can request it. Now, remember, which class actually happens during B period will depend on the master schedule. So we're probably not going to offer all of these classes that are listed there in orange during B period. It depends on when the teachers can teach them. So the B period may be approved on a space available basis. So to give an example, somebody wants to get into the biomedical pathway as a 10th grader. So they're going to be in principles of biomedical science, but next year we may not offer that class B period. So what would happen is that class would be somewhere period 1 to 6, and then let's say their English class would be B period. So, and it could be any one of those, just whatever's offered and fits with the overall master schedule. And let's talk about 11th graders. So 11th graders, you guys are not required to take a 7th course. We do have limited offerings in the B period, just because that's what is available and when teachers can teach their courses. We can't guarantee placement in the 7th course, but if you want one, we encourage you to put the request in. Most students who take that 7th course are part of a larger program. They're in, with the chamber singers, or they're in with the jazz band, or they're, wanting to get into Theater 4 and Play Pro. Some of those programs from the previous slide, or if they strictly maybe a touch credit deficient and want to make up some courses during the year as opposed to doing summer school 1 year. They are able to take, just remember, the students are able to take all those necessary subject requirements without ever taking a 7th class during the school day. There is ample room in periods 1 through 6 throughout freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior year for a student to make themselves a very attractive candidate, not just for high school graduation, but also for college admittance.
Yeah. we're heading into territory of more things that are definitely not required, but we know we get questions about. I think all of these things to me just really brings the idea of talking about balance to the front. Um, right? Maybe some years having a B period worked for a student, and other years you're like, well, shoot, I want to go out for the track team this year. And that means I would be in school from 8:30 to 3:40 and then have practice from 4 to 6, and then I'd go home and eat and shower, and now it's 7:30 and they still have all their homework to do, right? It's just a decision, kind of looking at the big picture, and how non-district courses fit into this is definitely part of it. So when we're talking about non-district courses, we're talking about classes not offered by Cal High or the district. So never does a student have to do this, right? Sometimes there's just attractive options out there that they're wanting to pursue. Really what we're hearing from the colleges is that they prefer students to take classes at their high school whenever possible. Um, you know, we school staff are able to speak for what that experience is, and it more closely emulates what they're going to be doing in college in terms of discussion groups and practice and test environments. And that just isn't necessarily replicated in some of these outside courses, especially outside online courses. But if this is something you're looking into, there's information on the district website that's very comprehensive. And then, of course, we do need to know what students are doing if it impacts their, especially if it impacts their schedule at Cal High. So that's where that intent form comes in. And this is all on the district website, which is linked here, but I always just get to it. SRV, USD, non-district courses, and it takes you where you need to go. So here are our counselor guidelines of, kind of what we talk about with students when we're working through whether or not this is something that would make sense for them. The first conversation I have with my students is like, what's your goal with this? And sometimes they're like, oh, I don't have room in my schedule. And it's, they're only focused on next year versus the next couple years, right? For all the students that are listening to this, right, you have at least 2 more years of high school. Some of you, half of you even have 3 more years of high school. So looking beyond just next year and planning out a few years. I know we mentioned, I think we'll talk about our 4-year planning in a little bit, but really looking at the big picture, and are you trying to fit everything on the buffet on your plate now, or can you go back for seconds later when you're a little older? So that, or the circumstance where you're really interested in something we don't offer. I know we have some students that'll take ASL as their foreign language through one of our community colleges, or had a student wanting to take like the history of rock and roll for their art class. So I think those are kind of the circumstances that make sense to me when it's things that you can't fit or things that we don't offer. Any courses that are being used for a graduation requirement would need to be on Cal High's transcript. So say, for instance, you are doing ASL and you're not planning on taking vocational art, then you would want it on the transcript so you're meeting that requirement for having 2 of those 3 categories like was discussed earlier. The other thing to consider, and that I talk about with students, is are you ready for what you're taking on? Because you have so many things happening in your life to balance. Is this something else you can fit on your plate without sacrificing things that are important to you? Part of it is that all these classes are a part of a student's academic record. If they're taking a community college class, it's not only part of their high school coursework, but that's their first class on their college transcript, and that will be part of their record. So really being mindful of that when you're deciding to take things on, or thinking of timeline too, of is this something I can do now or wait till I'm later when I have more balance, or if that's something you want to explore. We also do, this isn't on here, but I always think about what students are giving up or what other opportunities they're forfeiting. So sometimes I hear students just wanting to take more classes to take more classes. And when they're pressed a little further, they say it's about college requirements. And the feedback that we get a lot of times is the colleges already know based on your high school transcript that you're a great student. So they're wanting to see what else you care about and where else are your talents. So maybe doing something a little different, whether that's different for everyone. Some people care about the arts or sports or volunteering or getting a part-time job, an internship. Lots of really valuable experiences out there other than things that have a letter grade attached to them. Generally speaking, too, there are the parameters around how many outside classes students could take. The colleges will recalculate your GPA, so don't need to stress too much about having things that are not graduation requirements on our high school transcripts.
All right, so let's talk. We've talked a lot about our in-state schools so far tonight, but let's make sure we mention the out-of-state and private schools. So they can have different entrance requirements than the Cal State and the UC systems. If you have an interest in the school that's outside those systems, please make sure to check those entrance requirements because they may be different. They may require 4 years of math. They may require three science lab courses instead of two. They may require the SAT or the ACT, which the UC and Cal State does not require at this time. So please just be aware of the entrance requirements of the schools that you're interested in, and make sure that your 4-year plan, which we'll talk more about in a couple of minutes here, that your 4-year plan covers those entrance requirements. So one of the questions we get a whole lot from our students is, what can I be doing now to prepare? So as I mentioned on the previous slide, that 4-year plan, create a draft of that 4-year plan. And this is, I always like to tell the students, this plan is written in pencil. So this can change as we go through high school. And we'll link to the worksheet for the 4-year plan, I think, on the next slide or two. But think about, as Ms. Falcone so wonderfully put a couple of minutes ago, think about ways to get involved in your school community. We have so much. We have the sports, we have the performing arts, we have over 130 clubs on campuses, which is a great way for you to get involved with like-minded people and create social connections. Explore the possible those summer opportunities that are outside the classroom. Again, without that letter grade attached to it, what are some internships you could seek out? What job opportunities are out there? Are you interested in, or are you part of like the Scouts, or are you involved with your local church group and serving the community? Things like that. All those things really make you a well-rounded individual, and those are things that the colleges are gonna look for, and they want to see. What the feedback that we've gotten is, they really like it when students have spent some time with each of those things, not just like doing a whole bunch of things for, like, I don't know, a couple of weeks each, but they've really like dived deep into the areas that they choose to spend their extra time in. And then also, mentioning time, develop those time management skills. Use your planner, use your phone, create reminders for yourself, follow a calendar, establish your routine, whether it's a weekday routine, weekend routine, work routine, home routine. It helps add a sense of predictability to your life, and that can take some of the stress away. Block out your distractions and prioritize your tasks. What's the most important versus what's the most urgent, and is there something that's both? Those kind of things that you should ask yourself. And then make sure that you're taking care of yourself, because if you're not healthy and your mental health is not there, your physical health is not going to be there. Reserve time to rest, recharge, do things that you love and are passionate about and that feed your soul, so that you can put everything that you can toward your academics when that time is right. Um, and then build relationships with your school community. As we said, the clubs are a great way to get connected, but get to know your teachers, get to know your counselors. We love it when you stop by our offices, drop in, say hi, introduce yourself. We love putting names with faces. And when we have college or career visits on campus, show up. If it's a school that you're interested in or a career path that you're interested in, please come and learn, get some information. If you're interested in the military, we have them visit several times a year. They put the chin up bar outside, and it's always a fun time to see the students out there engaging. And then tour college campuses, get to know, start thinking about where you'd want to go. It doesn't have to be the one that you're super familiar or that you're super passionate about yet. Just get on any campus. We have some great ones locally that you can go and visit and kind of do a tour, get to, kind of get the feel of a campus environment, because it's a lot bigger than Cal. So, but it has a different feel, and you can decide what you like about it, what you may not like, or you can see, what different campuses have to offer. Um, Let's see, consider PSAT or the NMSTQ if appropriate for you, 10th and 11th grade. And remember, the PSAT, it's strictly a practice, and it just kind of gets you ready for the SAT if that's going to be a requirement for entrance for you. And we do offer it here on campus in the fall, as well as the SAT for the upper levels. And then keep track of your achievements and accomplishments. In Naviance, I know students, we kind of talk about Naviance a lot. We introduce you to a new aspect of it every single year. There's a resume builder in there where you can keep track of all of your accomplishments, your awards, your jobs, your internships, the grades that you've gotten, any scholar athletes, the teams that you've been on, whole bunch of stuff. And that's a great way to build it and keep track of it, because if it's written down, then it doesn't have to take up active space in your memory. So, and then there's some great self-discovery tools on Naviance there where you can learn more about yourself. Answer some questions, figure out what you like to do, what you could be passionate about, what you could be really good at. You may find out something about yourself that you didn't know, and it may come back with a career pathway that you might not ever have considered had you not taken that exam for yourself. And you could find out something that could be really, really beneficial to you long term. Okay, so as we've talked about tonight, we've talked about balance. So consider all of your time commitments when you're choosing your courses. Okay, what outside extracurricular, co-curricular activities that you have, what are those responsibilities? How much time does that take up? All those things are important when you're choosing your courses. Don't assume that you can just drop a class and pick another one, because there may not be flexibility in your schedule. You might want to take advanced ceramics, and that is the only period that's only offered during fourth period. So do your research, commit to your choices, um, and you'll be in great shape. So know those the recommendations and the expectations of the course before requesting them online. Okay. Um, so know what grade you should get in the current level class that you have, before you decide you may want to jump into the AP course in the next level next year. And those are questions that you can ask us as counselors anytime, but we'll specifically go over that also in those one-on-one meetings with you. And then make your alternate choices carefully. The master schedule always has limits. Every year, we're not able to have one so big that every student is guaranteed all of their choices. So they can affect, like I said, those alternate choices can affect your primary choices. This is really the first choices that you put in, they really are the wish list or the rough draft. And then, as we mentioned earlier, the A through G plans, it's linked here on this slide. So find it and fill it out, think ahead, set goals. We have offered workshops for 4-year planning. We're going to have them for current freshmen in a couple of weeks here, and we'll have dates for sophomores before too long here, and they'll be during tutorial. And be prepared with questions during your one-on-one counselor visit. This is your time. This is the one time you are guaranteed to sit down, just you, just your counselor. And we want to hear if there's any changes that have come up. If you decided that you wanted global studies for English and history, but the circumstances have changed and you no longer want to do that, that's the time in that meeting where we're going to do it. And just remember, a 7th class is never guaranteed, just because of the number of impacted classes that we have here. And because we're a high enrollment school, we have very strict limits on the 7th classes and the offerings and options that we have there. So.
All right. So nuts and bolts, the logistics of what's going to happen in these next few weeks. So today is Wednesday. Friday, we are having our course offerings fair at lunch in the gym. Students will be invited to come down, check things out. Teachers will be at tables with some often peer representatives to talk about their classes, answer a little bit about what happens and the differences in some of the different classes. It's a really great event. I love going and asking the students in particular, like, what are your favorite projects that you've done in the class? What's the most unexpected thing to happen? Maybe what do you wish you knew before you took the class? And having those conversations with people who are in those classes versus just looking at the course catalog. Really brings it to life. So that is on Friday for students during lunch. Gosh, is this already like the end of next week? Are we already at the end of February? Yes, we are. The Infinite Campus portal will be open March 1st through March 8th. So a couple key things to remember. This is completely a rough draft. We do not expect what goes into Infinite Campus to be in any way, shape, or form the actual list that students will be requesting. It's just your family's best idea of what your child wants to take at this time. The signed summary sheets are due on the 8th to either the counseling office, or the students can return it to the class where we passed out those selection sheets. So depending on the grade level, that might be English, it might be their health or world geo class. So that's the Infinite Campus step of things. So like I said, we're just asking that you do the best job. Truly, a lot of the point of it is to help with the data entry, because each counselor will be meeting with 300 plus students. So having some of the manual entry done in advance is really helpful. There are further instructions on the course selection page that I referenced earlier that actually talk about like how to put those things into Infinite Campus and tips and tricks there. But if you've done it in years past, it is working the same. And then, like we said, we want to know that you and your student have talked. So we do want a signed signature page on Friday. Oh, that changed to 3/8 as a fraction, but it was meant 3/8 as a day. So Friday, March 8th. The reason that we have it due while the portal is still open is because after the portal closed, you won't be able to print that anymore. So that's why there's a little bit of overlap there. The AP and Honors contract and time management sheet is part of our process. I feel like we actually haven't talked too much in this presentation about AP and Honors and when that makes sense. If I had to sum it up, I would really say when there's a motivation and an interest in the subject that are overlapping. So if your student is really passionate about history or science or math, right, they might be very capable of doing AP in any of those classes if they've found success in the past, but there's only so many hours in the day. So being really thoughtful about where you want that time and energy to go and what makes sense. AP and Honors classes, some people think that they're required in some way, and they're not. The right number to take completely depends on the student and their desire, their interest, how school typically is for them. The reality is that sometimes students need a little longer with assignments, and some students breeze through them. So if someone takes a little bit longer, then thinking of that number might be a little bit different than someone who can read really quickly, because that's a big component in a lot of these classes. So the intent and purpose of the AP and Honors contract is really to communicate that these classes are extra work, and in no way, shape, or form are they required. So being thoughtful about it. And the reason for the contract specifically is we don't always have room to move students out of those classes during the school year if it does feel like too much, because we are, as best as possible, creating our schedule for next year based on student requests. So there's not room always to move a student to do a level change. The contract is not open until after counselor meetings begin, because we really want the conversation about whether they're still thinking this is a good idea to happen after we've talked to the student about their plans. So the time management sheet is embedded. The most we recommend AP and Honors classes is really 2. So if students are doing beyond that recommendation, then we're like, okay, show us your plan and how you're going to fit these things with your other requirements, taking care of yourself, showering, hanging out with your friends, like all the things that life as a teenager encompasses. Like John mentioned earlier, please choose alternates for your classes. We want them to be thoughtful, so having those done in advance. If not, we'll remind you at the counseling meetings, but that is really helpful for our process and necessary for our process. So counselor meetings, this is kind of, to me, the piece de resistance of the schedule change or course selection process. So we, as the counseling team, we all sit in the break rooms together in the main building and call classes of students in and meet with every student 9th through 11th grade one-on-one to talk about their requests next year, and answer any questions they have. it takes place over the course of several weeks. I'm sure you can imagine they are very time intensive, but it's personally one of my favorite parts of the year. So mid-March through April, we will be calling students in their classes. We also do makeups for students who are absent. So please don't stress if your student can't be there that day for whatever reason. We go through and pull kids that weren't there. So during these meetings, we can and expect changes to happen between what they put in online, and we'll say, oh, you actually need this requirement, or did you think about saving this for later and taking care of this now? And having some of those balanced conversations in those meetings too. So changes can happen then. This year, a little different than years past. If any changes are requested after that meeting, it is still possible, but we'll have a window in May to get that taken care of via Google form. And that's partially to help us streamline our process and being consistent in having a record of what students are making changes for. And then the other part is to have students have time to really think and make sure that what they're wanting to change, they actually do. We have some students that this feels like a big decision because it's what classes they'll be sitting in next year. So we understand, and they go back and forth, and we can tell it creates a lot of anxiety for them. And we just want to make sure that we know what their actual final choices are. So that's the reason for this new process. A note about the parent meetings, we would totally love to be able to accommodate individual parent meetings about this, but I'm sure you can understand with our caseloads and how many students we're already meeting with and the parents, we just really need to have our time dedicated towards meeting with the students about course selection, but also all the other things we do as a counselor. So for those reasons, we really want those one-on-one meetings with the student to be the primary avenue for answering questions and really getting the student involved and engaged in these conversations as well. All right.
All right. So in closing, sorry, uh, breathe. I think I need to do that. So just take a deep breath. Perfection is not a college requirement. There is a college out there for everyone. There are about 4,000 out there. So, and remember, advancing through classes through the summer is not required, nor is it necessary to be admitted into college. Okay, we want you to take the chance to and take the time to enjoy your high school experience. Remember, those AP and honors courses are not required to be admitted into college. And remember, choosing to take those courses should be based on your passion and your sincere interest, not in the weight and how it looks on your transcript and how you think it's going to look to the colleges that that are going to be reviewing applications. Please consider that extra time and the workload that's going to be required for those courses. And remember, please, self-care. The sleep and the rest are just as important as studying. We want you guys at your sharpest. We want you guys to do your best. We want you guys to do things you didn't even know you could do. We want you to achieve. And you get one high school experience. Make time for fun, connect, find what you're passionate about, even if it's not academic, because not all of your life is going to be academic. And please, please, please limit that time you spend on social media. Make real connections with people, spend time with your friends and family, and develop yourself as a person. Thank you so much for taking the time. I see all the the thumbs up and the claps out there. Thanks for the love. There are our social pages right there. The Instagram is at Cal High Counseling. We have our YouTube page, and we have the Cal High Counseling website, which we've talked about pretty extensively tonight. The course offering sheets are linked right there, and then the course planning page is also linked there. So
and there's a typo on our slide. It's
yep.
Friday, March 8th. I'm saying
yes,
that now.
March 8th,
I'll change the slide
not
before
the 13th.
I post them.
Not the 13th. When the slides are posted for everybody to view, that will be changed. Just remember, they must be signed by a parent or guardian. Get them to us by March 8th.
Yeah. And I know we're almost at time. I'm happy to stay on for a few minutes doing some Q&A if that works for you, John. But
sure.
This concludes the scripted part of our presentation. So if you want to hang out for Q&A, you're welcome to stay. But if not, we thank you for your time and look forward to seeing your kids.
All right, so we have a question in the chat. For the 4-year planning workshops, will they be held during class time?
Those, we have 2 scheduled for ninth graders already. One is happening during student support, and then we have one happening after school on a Wednesday when it's early dismiss for kids, but those are completely optional, so students have the choice when they're signing up. But they want to attend. So, and if those do fill up, we will schedule more. Please don't feel like it's, you know, a limited resource.
Perfect. And I do want to let our folks know that we do have the Q&A available. If you do have any questions, go ahead and add those there. We'll either be able to answer them live or shoot over a response to you.
We have other questions, Christine?
Not at the moment.
Okay.
I think you could just kind of touch on where to find the course catalog and what kind of information could be found there, because there's quite a few questions about specifics about courses and what it counts for and things like that.
Yeah, in the course catalog, what you can, the easiest way to get to it is to just go to Google and do a search for SRV USD course catalog. That will take you right to the district's page where it is. It's about a 165-page document, and it contains every course that the school district offers at all of the high schools. And there is a paragraph going into detail about what is required, what the students are going to learn in the course, and at the end it says which campuses offer which course. So I would use that in concert with the course selection sheets. So let's say you're very interested in AP Computer Science principles, and you want to know what you're going to be learning in that. Go to the course catalog, do your control find, type in AP Computer Science principles, and then read the little the explanation in there, and that should give you the details that you need to know.
Yeah, that also has information too about like different pathways. So like it'll have, you know, what the sequence is of the biomedical pathway or the engineering pathway. So, and like I referenced earlier, the math pathway as well.
Can
Courses
you also
are
talk about priority, like are
Yes.
students placed and first come, first serve?
Yes. So when you input your selections into Infinite Campus does not matter in the slightest. There's no benefit to doing it March 1st versus March 7th, right? Nothing there. How our courses are determined who gets priority is by grade level. So descending order seniors to freshmen, just because that's the oldest students have the least time left at school. So they need the priority to finish off getting those classes that they're really wanting to take. So that's how priority is assigned.
I feel like you guys have answered all of the questions that have come up, and there's been no new ones. Someone is asking about taking more than one science, which you all did cover, but I don't know if you want to touch on it one last time as a farewell.
Sure, yeah. So students can take one core science course, which would be, for example, biochem, physics, something like that, and they can take a science elective if there is room for it, which would be something like the biomedical pathway. So I see the phrasing on this question is, can a student take physics and chemistry in the same year? Unfortunately, no, because that would be two core sciences. So what we can do is try to accommodate one core science and one science elective.
Yeah, I just do want to reiterate too, because I'm seeing a couple questions that are like very, very specific. Please have your student come talk to their counselor. You know, they could certainly wait until their one-on-one meeting, but if you have a burning question you want answered, you could come and during drop-in hours. But, you know, given the specific nature of it, it doesn't make sense to address in this large forum. All right. So thank you again for your time. Our recording will be posted, and we appreciate you taking time out of your Thursday night to come hang out with us.
Thank you, everyone.